Hello, everybody. This is About Buildings and Cities. I'm George Gingell.
I'm Luke Jones.
We are talking more about Tarkovsky. We're going to talk today mostly about the two films he made after leaving the Soviet Union.
Yeah, we defected.
He made one in Italy, which is called Nostalghia, which starts with that haunting music. Women and a white horse in a field, in the fog.
Yes.
Again, reminding me of Hedgehog in the Fog, actually.
Hedgehog in the Fog.
Haven't you seen it?
What's that?
It's a Soviet children's animation. A hedgehog is very beautifully animated. The hedgehog explores the scary deep wood, and he meets a dog who is very friendly and a white horse, and he's going to take the sandwiches to his friend the bear. And the white horse is a magical white horse, and the dog is like the friendly half dog, and it just like, I thought, that's very Tarkovsky. And then he made a second film that we're going to talk about, which is Sacrifice, which was made in Sweden. And it's a sort of Bergman homage.
One of his big guys. One of his two big guys.
Well, I think he's someone who the influence went both ways, definitely, particularly in the beginning. Right. Talk about Nostalghia.
I guess we should, yeah. So he's defected at this point. I mean, he obviously had a plan, didn't he? Because he went straight from defecting into making a film pretty quickly.
I think
I guess he had some
they were
contact.
very happy to have him. He tried to make this film about Peter the Great. Basically said, oh, it's all going to be about God at all.
Yeah.
And it was. And he got stopped and he threw a hissy fit and burned all the negatives and torched the project. They weren't actually going to stop the project, I don't think. I think they was just like, no, you can't do all the God.
Got to do the script that we've agreed to fund. Those damn Soviets, you would never find behaviour like that in Hollywood, would you?
Yeah. It's just people just think that you make vaguely the film that you said you're going to make. And then he left and immediately made a film about how it's terrible to not be in the Soviet Union. He's described as a poet, but he's writing a biography, presumably a prose one.
Of a composer? I don't think he's real.
It's a Russian composer who is also an exile in Italy and is also getting the nostalgias, but really that's unimportant. It's just a sort of way of making the protagonist, because he's not actually Tarkovsky. It's just that he's definitely exploring themes that are close to his current condition.
I mean, there's a previously noted theme as well that he's in Italy with this very beautiful Italian woman. In the film, it cuts between him traipsing around various bits of Italy, mostly this village in Tuscany, and these like nostalgic memories. With the former in colour, the latter in black and white, and in the latter there's another woman who is the kind of wronged wife. No, he's the who he's left behind.
Tarkovsky, he's left. I mean, Tarkovsky had left his wife, his second wife, and both his wives, but the one he was still married to, and his sons in the Soviet Union. And our author protagonist has left his wife, his mother, his son, and his daughter, who are the four characters standing in the field in these sort of dreams, dream memories of his house in the country, depicted as memories, really. The world in which there is a kind of magical, almost folkloric world in which people stand around sort of as if they are waiting, yearning for the return of the writer.
These little nostalgia dreams are often shot in slow motion.
Slow motion, black and white, with an extremely spare soundscape.
Something about the contrast is also kind of heightened. They've got like very, very rich black again. Been very, very carefully.
His wife has got
graded.
It's got sort of great black hair and black eyebrows. And,
yeah, these sort of dark eyes.
Yeah, and then, is in these lovely rooms, often with like triple aspect.
I don't know where you stand on. I don't know how much you like this film or not. For me, it's like technically the shots in it, I think, are some of the most beautiful, and the sort of the effects that he's able to create are some of the most memorable. I think it's one. I don't know if I necessarily like or really buy into the story or the characters, but it's definitely the one which I most enjoyed rewatching.
This is the first one where I was getting it a little bit in Stalker, where he is starting to feel like a self-parody. He's like reused the trope so much. It's like, oh, I know what I do now. I do a dream sequence where a man walks through stepping on valuable things. There is a bottle in the rain. There is mud at the wrong scale with water between it, and there's a reflection. But both the last two films, actually, I feel have bits of the story that works and bits that doesn't, have bits that are resolved. But this one feels very much more resolved than the second one. I thought it was quite strong. It had bits that irritated me because of the, like, it's kitschy. It's art kitschy a little bit more than some of the previous ones. The very first scene is so beautiful. And then the second scene is so beautiful.
Amazing, yeah.
And then the third scene is unbelievably beautiful. And then the fourth scene is really beautiful. And it kind of carries on like that. I mean, they're not all...
Well, so there's a title sequence which is shot in the kind of dream landscape with the... And then, yeah.
There's this scene. It's a kind of amazing scene. We're in the countryside. It's like a field. It's foggy. And a car drives in from the right of the screen. You follow it. It then drives off the screen. And it then comes... That's in the background. And it then comes around into the foreground, into the field. And then it stops. And they have a discussion. They've driven to see a painting. He's decided he doesn't want to see it after all. Beautiful and striking Italian woman gets out and walks up kind of diagonally the same frame into the mist.
Does she have a name in the story?
Don't know. I can't remember the names of any of the characters, really.
Domiziana Giordano is the actress. He has a name. Oh yeah, she's called Eugene.
And they're going to see a good painting, which certainly isn't in that building now. It's now in a museum, which is just a museum of the painting, which is the Madonna in Parto. I forget the town it's in. It's in a small town south of San Sepolcro on its own. Piero della Francesca.
It's in this amazing colonnaded like space. It's this sort of quite tight grid of thin little sort of Romanesque
spolia,
columns,
as Matt would say, columns, all taken from different places in this very rugged. And it may have been in that. It was originally a fresco in a church. It's just not there now. But there's a scene which is both shows some of the strengths of the film and I think some of its weaknesses.
But there's a rather tedious conversation, and then around it is the most extraordinary staging of action and kind of camera movement. Because the camera is constantly like moving slowly between the columns and kind of coming to rest and then sort of moving again. Often it like aligns itself with this beautiful receding one-point perspective going off into the distance. But then sometimes it will sort of tilt, yeah.
And what's happening is the woman has come in, some sort of religious ceremony consisting of, how are they dressed? Like extremely religiously dressed women.
They're all wearing
not
these
very
sort of
old
these
women
like shawls.
With tons and tons of, wearing...
And have they come to pray to have a child, or have they come to pray for some kind of relief? Or
It's like a cult ritual. I mean, it's really, there's like tons of candles, hundreds of candles in this tiny little church. It's like there's no congregation.
There are people in at the start who they're already waiting, they're already kneeling, and then at a certain point, the sort of big float with the statue of the Virgin is carried in, with all the candles on it. And the story is all about faith, obviously, and all these silently kneeling women have it, and she, as a sort of sophisticated and civilized person, doesn't have it, but is kind of aware of this terrible vacuum in her soul as a result.
Yes. And the priest is going, well, women should have children and look after them. And it's, the pregnant Madonna, and these women maybe are praying for children or maybe not. And there's a moment which is a famous one, where there's a prayer and then they open up the dress of the Madonna, and out sort of from her womb come all these birds, swallows, loads of them. And so there's this conversation. The elements are the ceremony, the conversation, and then looking around the church and the painting, which is a beautiful painting. So we've got beautiful, slightly irritating conversation about faith. Ceremony, which doesn't seem like real.
It seems slightly
it's extremely
strangely
theatrical.
Heightened, yeah. I mean, the whole space is like a theatre set in the way that action is created by people entering and leaving it, or coming towards and going away from the audience.
The previous film, Stalker, reminded me of a Greek tragedy in that it has like 3 actors. They're on stage all the time. Their discussion. This one has a chorus. And so you will normally have 2 or 3 characters on the scene engaging in dialogue. And in the background, a chorus which comments on the action. And that occurs throughout the film, actually. This sort of dynamic, which is particular to this film. It's not something he's generally doing. And it feels like an opera or like a Greek tragedy.
In what sense do you mean the chorus?
I mean a chorus like a Greek chorus.
So there are people commentating on the action which is going on? Or
Yes. So in this film, if you think there is the mass of people doing an action in the background of that one, or there's discussions going on around this thermal bath, and in the thermal bath will be 6 bathers whose action is kind of a counterpoint to the conversations.
Right, yes.
In the city, there are all the people looking on in the city while 2 or 3 people
Do something.
do action. I felt that relationship where there will be an action and then a number of people who are not directly interacting with it, but who act as a counterpoint and commentary to it.
Yeah, and the scenes are very long, you know, so once you've had those 2 scenes, you're 10 minutes in.
Three, because there's also the titles, which is super beautiful, the car and countryside and this church.
And then there's this nice cut we sort of have close on the face of the Virgin in the Piero della Francesca painting, and then we have like match cut to Oleg Yankovsky's face in one of these dream sequences. So we sort of go from one pair of eyes to another. He wanted again to cast Solonitsyn, who's the writer in Stalker.
And is in the mirror, I think.
He's in the mirror, and he's in Andrei Rublev as well. He's, I think he plays Andrei Rublev.
He does, yeah.
Who would have given it a very different feeling, because this guy's much better looking.
Very handsome. We spend a lot of this film looking at a beautiful woman and a very handsome, well, 2 very handsome people, really. And a lot of the time is looking at their face.
There's a certain amount of like sarcasm in the dialogue, as there always is, but I think it with the original choice of actor, it would have been much bleaker, I think. Whereas in this, because he's very charming all the time.
Bleaker and possibly more like sardonic. When we were talking about Stalker, I've realised subsequently that I have not given it credit sufficiently as satire. And I think Stalker has a lot of satire in it, but it's not very funny.
No.
In the bonus, I said in one of the student films, we see the last joke, but there is a joke in Stalker, which is that they got to the middle of Stalker, to the middle of the thing.
Yeah, to the room.
And they sit exhausted in a room, and the telephone rings, and the guy picks it up and goes, "No, it's not the polyclinic."
Yes.
So in the middle of like this blasted magical landscape, someone's dialed in and got a wrong number.
That is a joke, yeah. Bit of light relief. But I think that maybe I'll just describe this little dream sequence. We do a little watch along. He's wearing a lovely sort of trench coat.
Is this the one where he's going to walk on the lace?
In his exile, he's clearly had a bit of Italian tailoring, hasn't he?
He looks like D'Artagnan or like Zorro or something. He's so...
Looks behind him, a white feather falls. I think you don't initially read that it's slow-mo until he starts moving, and then you sort of see...
He picks up the feather. There is lace, a wine glass and coins in a muddy field. His foot is on the sodden lace in the mud. There's a path going off through the field in the distance. He looks up the path, and then he sees, past the telephone pole and trees, a simple timber house and an angel with big white wings walking to the door.
Very strange, isn't it?
And it's slowly zooming out. And then he wakes up.
Most of the dreams are in that same landscape, aren't they? This kind of little house in a sort of... It's like in a sort of hanging valley or something. It's this like miniaturized landscape, which is a kind of Italian painting background, isn't it? It's like kind of compressed background. where somehow the foreground and the background are a bit closer together than...
Yes, and you don't see a horizon. You're looking at the slope of the hill. And also, obviously, the sky is quite far up the image because it's on a slope. Yes, and the dreams take place there or inside the house looking out. So at various points, like, you know, the people he's left behind will be standing spread out across that hillside, sort of like looking between
looking
other
like mid-90s band album cover.
Yes,
one close, one far away, two intermediate points.
It's beautiful again. Feels more like stagey, like this sort of like there's been heavy-handed symbolism in all the films as described, and actually the angel I didn't feel was too heavy-handed, but things like all the precious things on the ground in the mud, which we've seen so many times, it's beginning this very high contrast between the white lace and the feather.
God, yeah, you can't see a bit of mud without wanting to put a bit of white lace in it.
Yeah. It's such a specific thing, like...
It does look amazing in black and white as well, doesn't it? It's so
nice.
Yeah,
he's treading on it. It's so, like, such a precious thing is being trodden on. What am I doing? Perhaps I'm doing something wrong.
I have been dipping in a little bit to a book which he wrote a few years after this in the last year of his life. One of the things he says is that early on, in fact, when he was doing Ivan's childhood, he became convinced that if the author was showing a place which they had a sufficiently strong memory of an emotional connection with, that somehow that would like reverberate with the audience as well. It was when he was reading the short story of Ivan's childhood, there was something, the descriptions of landscape, he could tell that the author had been to all of them and that it kind of made them real. And I think that sort of becomes a kind of general rule for his films and becomes more and more kind of extreme.
I feel for him, he starts to come to the conclusion. I said he liked the idea of an auteur being in control of everything, but it becomes that he likes the idea, a quite specific idea of an auteur, where really the films are an extension of some aspect of the person who is making them. All his films are like telling some aspect of how he feels about his own story. It becomes more than... In Ivan's childhood, you can see this sort of forest. He knows this sort of forest. He's had a beautiful experience in this sort of forest. And in this film, it's like, my whole feeling about leaving Russia is like this film. Yeah. It's like it's kind of expanding, as we've seen from The Mirror, from these sort of what people would think of as the mature period. They become stories which are relating parts of himself and parts of how he sort of feels about conflicts.
This film is full of scenes which are spatially very interesting in the way that he puts them together. You know, a lot of them are shot in these rather dank, sort of off-season looking Italian hotels.
Well, there's one. They're staying in one hotel in the resort town,
which is sort of quite grand, quite empty. None of the lights seem to be on. Awful lot of shadow.
Yeah, beautiful, dim, natural lighting.
Awful lot of like actress with very beautiful hair sitting in sort of middle to background with like dim grey light filtering through onto her back or that kind of thing, you know.
Yes. I mean, the plot point with the woman is that she is madly, desperately in love with him. He's not really interested at all.
No.
She's overwhelmed with passion, which is a tragedy for her.
She'll get over it.
She'll sort of get over it, but also be permanently marked by it.
Oh, well, yeah.
I think. Something like that. He notices she's beautiful, but his mind is on higher things.
Yes.
It's one of the weaker bits, I think. Well, I mean, a lot of the plot points are quite weak, actually. But not all of it is by any means.
There is a little bit of like on-set footage knocking around the internet of them doing one of these dream sequences, of them setting up the shot and then of them doing it. And it's shot in slow-mo, so the actual shot is about 4 seconds long. And then in slow-mo, it's like 12 or, long. Yeah. Yes, there's probably like a day of preparation and talking to people and trying to get everything going.
That feels optimistic to me, yeah. I think it's quite a specific plan.
As ever, he's kind of inspired by and then like deliriously heightening aspects of the real landscape. So they're part of it, a bit north, kind of particularly around the Po. Is famous for beautiful fogs all the time and that kind of thing. But he's creating all of these with men with smoke bombs off screen. It's sort of naturalistic, isn't it? But it's also way over the top.
It's really heightened. Like, you would see a fog like that. I have seen fogs like that, but you think, wow, that's an unbelievably astonishing fog. The way it's rolling so patchily. Here, like, he's turning up the notch here in terms of how theatrical it becomes. They're all still, like, beautiful. It just, at times, it takes on some of the characteristics of a music video. Shall I describe the plot? It won't take long. How long's the film? Like 2.5 hours. He's gone to this resort town because there's a writer there, but really it's about the woman and the man. And there's a pool. In the pool there are bathers. They have chit-chat. She's madly in love with him. By the pool, there is also a local eccentric who has locked his family up, and then they escaped because he wanted to protect them from the world. He's a religious maniac. Of a very gentle sort. The man becomes very intrigued with him. He lives in this strange house that he locked his family up in, which is one of the locations that I thought was most music video-y. It's also like a classic Tarkovsky space. The ground is full of mud with beautiful patches of moss. This is inside his like living room, and sort of silvery water. There's a wall that's been taken out, leaving just the door, which he studiously goes through, whereas other people walk round. It's got lots of glass bottles on the floor, and rain streams through the roof. And there are sort of enigmatic objects on the walls, and they walk around in light and darkness.
Yeah, bits of like polythene suspended from the ceiling, and
there's
canopies.
There's a really music video feature of a black and white photograph of a like scary doll. You can get away with it. It does still work, but I at least could not completely suspend sort of judgment, which I think you have to do. The man expounds his very sincere religious faith. 2 drops of oil is just one bigger drop of oil. He's got like 1 + 1 = 1 written on the walls all over the place. And the world is in ruin. There needs to be a spiritual awakening. The woman finally gives up on the man, the protagonist, having done various impassioned speeches. The Christian enthusiast tells the writer he must cross the river of St. Catherine, the water of St. Catherine, which is the pond.
With a lighted candle.
With a lit candle.
That's his sort of esoteric quest.
Time goes on a little bit. The writer is about to return to Russia. He gets a call from the woman. The Christian is going to put on some sort of demonstration. He feels he must stay, complete his quest. The Christian's demonstration is self-immolation, having done a speech in a very theatrical way that I think we could describe, because I think that's a scene that is sort of symptomatic of the film, actually. The man completes his quest, takes a few goes, the swimming pool is empty, and he eventually walks across it. And then we go to the end of the film where the kind of summer house is inside the ruin of a cathedral that we've previously visited, which is very beautiful. Describe it all as a bit when he's in a semi-submerged, really beautiful building. The writer is drunk, and there's a little girl, and he's drunk and asks her about life, having stated his view on life. And he tells another joke, which is that a man comes across another man who's drowning in a pool of mud, rescues him, and the man said, "Why did you do that? I live in the pool of mud." And it's hilarious. And that's his view on life. And that's the film. That really is almost everything that happens. Lots of running water, dripping water, dogs being silently religious, mournful memories of beautiful wife, impassioned speeches from woman madly in love, stoical man feels torn from countryside, that sort of stuff. It's all very beautiful.
It's very beautiful. It's all very beautifully lit. It's very like greyish, isn't it? But they're like amazing.
Really desaturated it in parts. Like it's in colour, but only just.
You'll have like a long period of action, which will be slow track towards the bed and bathroom door, lasting 8 minutes. Like, man walks backwards and forwards and turns the different lights on and off in different in different combinations.
Man feels the enormity of the universe. Dog comes, lies at the foot of the bed.
Opens the shutters, closes the shutters again. That's it. Yeah, it's got. But it's also just unbelievably, like, it's just so beautifully lit. Like, I think this is one of the best examples of this unnatural naturalism, or whatever it is. This kind of hyperreal, like dusky, gloomy sort of light, which it can't be real. But it's
actually sometime with the lighting in the hotel room, I felt it felt too artificial.
Yeah, no, it does feel
the
artificial.
lights going on and off really feel like he turns the lights. You know when, like, in some hammy 50s film, someone lights a candle and then suddenly the floodlight comes on.
Yeah. Or it's like in the theatre. You know, it's like in a theatre stage.
Yes, both of these last two films are very theatrical in that it's like a lot of closed environment with kind of like theatrically lighting, theatrical placement of people.
He's also got to a point where he's really interested in rigorously symmetrical, flat compositions.
One point perspective with most of the screen being effectively the back of the theatre, in which there are doors which people can be like emerge stage left.
You can open the shutters and the window. There's a view of the side of a building. Yeah. Lit in this kind of ambiguous, like, grey twilight, might be moonlight, depends.
Yeah, I wondered if you'd been going to the opera. There's sort of like the chorus as well.
Yeah, it could be. It's unlike anything ever seen before, really.
There's a conflicting emotion I get, which is that you feel that there is something very sincere and deep going on, and you also feel that it is deliberately obscure and obtuse, and like he's like trying to make you guess at, like, you're struggling to guess at things, and there's not much there. And the feeling that you're struggling to guess at it is actually amplified by you occasionally will get some inference that he's making. Oh, okay, actually, so he's actually talking about his son, or which it takes a bit of thinking about. And then you're like, well, if you're going to make me work that hard, how am I meant to know? How am I meant to understand this? And it's not like the feelings that he's trying to express are very universal.
Oh, I wanted to finish because I was talking about seeing the scene being made. Oh, yeah. And the thing about it is, it's definitely worth looking up this footage. Maybe we can link to it in the show notes. But you see an enormous amount of negotiation. You see this whole army of like grumpy Italian men who are off holding smoke bombs that's like slightly out of shot, and who are complaining because the smoke's going the wrong way or whatever. And you see Tarkovsky trying to charm everyone and trying to keep everyone on track and doing what they're meant to be doing. And then the way the scene is, it's quite amazing. The way everyone, like the marks that everyone has to sort of hit to be in the right place in this scene, which only lasts 4 seconds, and which contains a small girl and a dog running basically from the far background into the foreground, and the dog jumping into a sort of puddle.
And it's very quiet. I mean, there are some noises. It's very quiet, and when the dog jumps into the pool, it makes a big noise.
But it's exactly timed right, so that you sort of see her very far off in the distance, and the camera is like tracking across, going slightly downhill. I think you probably have to have a big man slowing it down. And there's some telegraph poles which it has to like go past, and everything has to be at exactly the right speed for it to unfold in this really, kind of dazzling way when it's slowed down to 1/3 speed or whatever it is.
But I don't feel he did it lots of times. No. Like, I think he would occasionally reshoot things, but I think he was someone who meticulously planned. Yeah.
But you do see what they've got, the camera operator, and then they've got two people holding the trolley going like faster, slower. But actually the shot is like 4 seconds long. So it's like, no, you know. And then you have someone standing behind them, like trying to get the dog to go in the right place.
He's got a real spatial intelligence. Really clever. Like, extremely good at this, extremely insightful as to what movement's going to do. I wanted to talk about the end of the film. I actually feel, by the way, having looked at all his films, he's a trouble with the middle. He's not as good at the middle of films. some of them drag in the middle. The start's great. The end is always great. The middle can be iffy. They're not all bad, but the end is strange. So, and what do you think this film is trying to say as well?
Yeah, how are we meant to relate to the religious maniac?
So it ends with the religious maniac, who is a very quiet, gentle religious maniac.
Yes, played by Erland Josephson, who's also in his later film, The Sacrifice, in which he again plays a kind of religious maniac.
Pyromaniac too.
Religious pyromaniac, which seems to be a thing. But he has this, he's very gentle. I think he's good in this film as well, isn't he? He's sort of...
Oh, he's good at acting, yeah. He's actually better at acting than the lead, I think. The lead is really handsome, and not bad. No slouch, for sure. He can do it. But, the two leads actually are both, just... Their main characteristic is their, physical beauty.
Well, he's kind of vulnerable and he's kind of slightly childlike. He feels very sort of stoical, very gentle.
Middle-aged man, gentle, sort of knowing, soft, very sincere. Great wells of sincerity. So it ends, and I think we could describe this. Do you want to put it up and we can describe it in depth again? The scene of his demonstration, because I think it shows some characteristics of this film which are quite Italian. Feel like they're Italian influenced and they're quite particular to this film, and also I don't really know what to make of it.
There's an awful lot of repetition. You have repetition of the camera moving around the outside of a space, in this case a sort of colonnaded square,
and the people are strange. There's a guy doing a Devo back of the Devo video, music video. There's a woman in a motorbike helmet and a rug. There's someone gurning. Everyone's standing still. There's the dog. There's it feels a bit like this could be Tarkovsky does.
I was thinking Pink Floyd album cover.
Yeah. We're panning over this beautiful.
Yeah, you have this sort of amazing staircase, which looks like the Capitol line but isn't, and lots of people standing essentially equally spaced in a kind of almost diagonal grid pattern, but not quite.
Two of them are moving. The people are a whole collection of stereotypes. Yeah. It's a bit like the village people, there's milkman man, feckless girl, old man, not quite that florid, but two of them are moving. It's panning around. He starts making a speech about how everything's the end of the world or whatever. Yeah. There's a big banner made.
The speech is both sort of sincere and also nonsense, isn't it?
It's complete nonsense.
It is nonsense and it's full of non sequiturs, but it's kind of treated with great seriousness.
He's standing on a bit of scaffolding over this enormous bronze equestrian statue. It looks like it's kind of Marcus Aurelius or something, but I don't think it is that. And he's making this speech, and it's slowly panning out, and there are all these people standing around like a Pink Floyd video. And there's a big poster, thing made of kind of knotted together sheets behind him, saying the end of the world or whatever.
It's sort of classic, Italian civic, big classical buildings, lots of travertine, lots of niches.
Away lots of leaflets, sort of wrong words. We're panning out to these people standing around. There's people with placards. Placards say things like, it's the end of the world. The end of the world is tomorrow.
But at a certain point, someone gives him some gasoline and he pours it all over himself.
He pours a tank of petrol all over himself. A person at the bottom, theatrically goes, light it. He's hesitating. And then he, lights the lighter, sets himself on fire. The music goes, wah, wah. Then it goes into the Ode of Joy, played really quickly. He's burning. He falls off the back of the equestrian horse. A man who was telling him to do the lighting, dances around maniacally, wriggles around pretending to be burning alive. The music stops. You see him wriggling around, screaming, and then he dies. And everyone's still stood around like a music video. And then it cuts to the other scene of a lighting, which is the man lighting the candle to walk across the swimming pool.
To carry out this esoteric mission.
Well, kind of the funny thing is, at the beginning of that scene, he takes a pill. At the end of the scene, he collapses.
Is he meant to be dead? Has he got heart trouble?
Is he meant to be dead? Has he killed himself? Is that what's going on? Has he Is it hard? Like, is it a medicine for nostalgia?
And you do have like a final dream scene afterwards, which is
Well, I mean, it can mean he's dead or it can mean he's not dead. There's a lot more that happens in the burning scene, all of which is kind of in the same vein of like very stagey people. The police arrive in a very stagey way. The dog symbolism, the kind of people standing around look on blankly.
Tarkovsky is in. Lots of people have done Ode to Joy in film, but he's done it twice in successive films because it's in Stalker as well.
Yeah.
There is a bit where Slavoj Žižek pulls together all the times people have done Ode to Joy in films. It is like there's lots of them, obviously, and it does always. It's never being used as a straightforward expression of brotherhood and.
Well, because it doesn't sound like that, does it? It sounds like military. I mean, like this huge chorus of people singing together. It's very assertive.
I was listening to it at work today. It's not a very good thing to listen to if you're trying to get things done, but it's the fourth movement of that the Ninth Symphony is an incredibly strange, it's so over the top. It's like people go, it's all like singing about Elysium and going hell for leather on the triangle and the glockenspiel. There's the bit where it does the kind of solo tenor voice and glockenspiel breakdown, which I think when I heard that in Clockwork Orange, that I thought that they'd made that up, that it was like a little satire or something.
Yeah. Wendy Carlos is like breaking out something strange, but no.
No, it sounds like something by Yellow Magic Orchestra or something, doesn't it? It's like, well, there's a lot of like à la Bruder.
What do you think this Tarkovsky scene means? What do you think the end of this film is about? You got any ideas? What's he trying to say? What is he trying to say?
The man can't live in the world because he is a beautiful soul who sees the truth of things.
But he's also a loon who locked up his family, and that is depicted as being a bit problematic. And then the other thing that's really important is the beautiful protagonist's longing for his homeland and family, sort of, in a very abstract way, that makes him feel like he's got to do, it's like he's on a series of interconnected kind of magical quests where he has to not step on the cracks in the pavement, and if he doesn't do that for 20 years, something magical will happen.
What is the Ode to Joy doing there?
It's this kind of moment of ecstasy of sort of thing. Because there's then immediately, it goes, wah, wah. There's this tape speeding up sound. It plays that. So you see the man burning and the kind of caricature. And then it cuts out and you hear him screaming. Which obviously provides a intense moment of contrasting.
What kind of ecstasy is Ode to Joy? It's everyone together.
Da 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 da. That's for the funny thing about it being the anthem of the European Commission is that it's like the opposite, isn't it? It's impassioned, slightly scarily impassioned.
Yeah, kind of self-disassembling. Actually, I was listening to the last 2 minutes of it and kind of imagining everyone spontaneously combusting in the theatre or something, it's people had stopped wearing wigs by then, but I was imagining them all being blown off in a big vortex of some kind.
It's definitely the end of the age, isn't it? It's we're going to blow away demonarchies and feudalisms and all that sort of stuff.
The Ode to Joy is about secular heaven, isn't it? It's people together, it's brotherhood.
Yeah. It also feels a bit pagan. Civic paganism.
I mean, people like to use it as a kind of placeholder for ideology, or maybe even totalitarianism, no? Because it's everyone getting swept up in the collective project and its sort of disastrous consequences or
which is the opposite of what's going on in the scene, where it's one man setting himself on fire while everyone watches impassively. Or rather, we have a chorus and the woman then comes up the stairs, who's the only real other person who's there. It's very strange.
It's a weird way of showing society as well, isn't it? All of these.
It's it is in the register of the prisoner. I feel it's high art the prisoner. I mean, the prisoner's already kind of high art for 60s telly, but
they're all everyone's a trope.
And then the man completes his quest and then dreams of He dreams specifically of the house inside the ruined cathedral.
Again, it's produced by one of these extremely slow, rather miraculous like camera movements. So you start off very close on him and the dog by a puddle, and you gradually move out and you see the house, and then you see the house is actually inside the ruined cathedral.
And it's snowing somewhat unconvincingly. And this cathedral we've previously been through in a great like pan, you know, from the arcade to the nave to the other arcade. Like if you just imagine having the camera sectioning the length of a ruined cathedral. And it worked very effectively. The like shift in perspective is great. Really, you see these different spaces. Nice. But what is he banging on about? I find it sure he likes this guy's faith, he likes this guy's nostalgia, there's some sort of spiritual union.
I mean, I sort of see the like holy fool immolating himself in front of the kind of indifferent crowd. I think you can sort of definitely see how that resonates with Tarkovsky's own sense of how he'd been treated in his home country, no?
But it's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, that is like, a lot of artists were persecuted by the Soviet Union. He was not one of them.
No.
Like, they wouldn't give him the money to make huge indulgent films about God. I mean, I personally think he should have had the money to make huge indulgent films about God. That's not the act of a cruel tyrant. I mean, like, on the scale of the problems, social problems with the Soviet Union, I would not describe that as a major one.
I think that's just the way that he would represent it to himself, though.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's all this, like, oh, me, I'm both so deep, so passionate, so divine, and yet so torn. My intellect is challenging my faith. Oh, me. When you make it all about yourself, it can only be a person. People aren't divine. It isn't all about him. It is more than that.
I kind of love it. It's a very strange film, and in a way, it's very cold.
I think, by the way, this is a good film, and I expect, having watched it for this project, I will watch it again later in life for my own purposes. Yeah. And I think part of the reason for the excessive analysis is that I feel I've got to think of something to say about this.
It's definitely the one that I find it easiest to watch, actually, just because all of the shots are they're so kind of slow and beautiful. And he does, when I was watching it, I was thinking that there is a particular way in which the camera kind of miraculously creates space, you know. He does these long shots where it will kind of pull back along one side of the pool. There's this big rectangular like thermal pool in the middle of the town, and then it will like track along one side of it looking into it, and then it will kind of move backwards and forwards. This long scene where he's trying to take the candle from one end to the other is just, it's all one shot. It takes a very long time. It's him like walking halfway, then walking back again, then walking most of the way, then walking back again, and then finally getting there, and then tracking and seeing the background move around in this like beautiful old kind of mildewy pool. It's just really lovely. You just sort of watch him, this handsome man in his overcoat, trying to shepherd this candle over, not saying anything, looking trifle unwell. And then what can you say about this last scene with the man and the dog and this clearly toy house in the background?
It's a sort of resolution in heaven, in a way. But, like, there's lots of points where you feel like I'm getting, like, symbolic encoded information, and I don't want to make of it. Like, the pool, I think, is a pool dedicated to St. Catherine of Siena, who worked to end the Western Schism through countless kind of, like, journeys to and from Avignon. That's what she's sort of famous for. Tarkovsky will have known that. What does he mean by it? I don't know, nothing, something. So what does the symbolic meanings of this ending mean? The house is inside the church. It pans out, it's snowing. It's beautiful. It's a sort of resolution. There's lots of symbolism. Is there encoded meaning? Sort of. I don't think you're meant to crack the code.
No, definitely not.
I think it meant something to him, sort of. But it's difficult. Like, I feel that there's lots of... The reason I gave the example about Catherine of Siena is because I feel that there are lots of things like that, which are these kind of learned nods. That sort of thing feels a bit like T.S. Eliot poetry, where he's like alluding to something. It doesn't matter. My brain's churning away on understanding it. It just comes against this wall of like hanging threads. When really, a beautiful set of images. But it is more than a beautiful set of images. He's trying to say something about these people, but what he's trying to say is sort of indulgent and silly.
I think if you just take the story absolutely at face value, that it's just this guy, he's homesick, we just see him doing things, they don't matter very much, and then we see his dreams, which are these kind of confabulations of his homesick mind. And they're all very beautiful. And I love what he does to the architecture. I think he's great him filming Italy is wonderful.
He's very good at it. And Italy's so beautiful to start with. Like, you don't look at those places and think, how could anyone make a beautiful photograph of this? But he does it so well. I actually thought that these two last films share a great deal with Ivan's childhood. This one feels a bit like Ivan's childhood, and it's a man doing something interspersed with black and white dreams. The like feather in the well. That's not an important point. It's just sort of, I feel that he is always calling back bits of his other works, often like by putting the poster on the wall, doing exactly the same thing. But
I mean, with reference to both this and The Sacrifice, what is the magic of being inside this very long, continuous take? What is it that makes them so enjoyable? Because, the next film starts with a very, very long, continuous shot, which maybe I'll just describe it because it's so that in that one it starts. So Josephson is the lead, and it's him and his son,
who is only referred to as the little man.
The little man, and they're planting what seems to be a dead tree with sort of rocks to prop it up. Right?
Yes, he's got a Japanese. He sort of imported a dead Japanese tree and he wants to plant it as a gesture. And
this landscape is this kind of very flat, like grassy landscape with occasional conifers and an awful lot of... Is it like a sort of island landscape or something? It's kind of...
I think it's one of the islands near Gotland, they're in the Baltic. But not in the archipelago away.
And so you've got a lot of like intermixed like sea and grass. The landscape, it reminds me a little bit of East Lothian, to maybe bring things down a bit.
East Lothian generally looks a little more bleak, but yes.
Oh, it's got its moments. It's got lovely light.
I suppose anyway. It's less cloudy than the other side.
Yes. And yeah, but the shot, just to describe it, they are having this sort of strange conversation. They're planting the tree.
The conversation is about how the tree will grow if you keep watering it like a Japanese monk.
And then his weird, like, drunk postman friend rides up, and they sort of walk together for a bit with him riding around them on his motorbike, and then his push bike, yeah. But the whole time they've been moving across the landscape, and the camera has kind of been moving with them, and then through some sort of bushes. It's really gone quite a long way on this amazing journey. And I guess the first, I did time it. I think the first scene lasts like 10 minutes or something. It's a really long time.
Presumably an entire roll as much as you can get in a film camera, which I don't know how long that is, but it is. Prior to that, I would have assumed it was a little bit less, like 9 minutes or something, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. It's quite, I guess you just put a bigger can on or something, but.
And it also ends with an extremely long, continuous shot. But it's all full up of those. But I think that initial, there's something about the way it just keeps going and going and going.
And the camera travels a long way. It's something we've seen from the mirror. The end of the mirror has got a camera moves quite a long way along this, presumably track. It goes a long way on this track over a long scene. Not like the camera moving across a room, which is what you'd normally think about, but the camera moving actually, 100 meters or something.
I think they're all tracked. I think he did everything on tracks. I don't think he ever got into steady cams or.
No, I don't know. Steady cam is not very Tarkovsky in its sort of aesthetics. Well, I don't have a specific answer, but I had thought there's a different sorts of time going on in the 4 last films. In all of them, I suppose. In Stalker, there are these very long shots, which are continuous, but they don't occur in real time, in that you sense that the movement of time is not kind of one-to-one with what you're seeing. Like, it feels like time is accelerated or slowed down, or at least you're unsure about its passage.
Well, is that sort of produced a little bit by the way in which the dialogue is?
Yeah, and also, you'll look round and see people will kind of appear as if they have magically or there's a general air of
It's kind of discontinuity
of action and position of objects and things implies a kind of different time. Whereas, and there's a little bit of that occasionally in Nostalgia, and there's certainly that also in Mirror, where like memory kind of like some things feel like they are like the scene with the fire on the barn. It feels like the pacing of the action slows down and speeds up in the way that like the information you're remembering slows down and speeds up time. Whereas this scene and the scene of walking across the pool feel very much like they are occurring in kind of Aristotelian unity time, like 1 to 1. You are witnessing things as they have occurred, and the long movement of the camera is very like you as a person, as an observer, moving around, watching something occur. It generates this real space and real time. Well, I'm not quite sure what it does, all the things it does, but it does generate that sense of space and time.
Yeah, I think there's also something empathetic about it, isn't there? That you're kind of with the characters in the place, moving exactly the same. In The Sacrifice, you have this very sort of gentle walking pace of the oldish man and the young boy walking across the sort of sunlit landscape, and yeah, there is something kind of empathetic and about you sort of have a real sense of being with them, and also there's something just very there's something very pleasant about that scene. Yeah,
it's a good bit. It's a good bit of the film. Again, it has like rambling philosophical conversations.
They're all getting together to have dinner. Slightly peculiar family setup. So he's got the ex-wife, her new husband.
No.
What is it?
It's his birthday. Various people are arriving. The postman is bringing gifts to his birthday party. He is a playwright and actor who has retired some time ago at the peak of his success because he felt... he's an actor, actually, sorry. And he felt he couldn't go on for various... he's got some sort of spiritual hang-up of some sort. Creative hang-up. In the house, there is his son, who doesn't really say anything as a young child, called the little man, his kind of adolescent daughter, his English actress wife, who is rather dissatisfied with him, a friend of his who is a local doctor, whom certainly his wife is kind of infatuated with, and probably his adolescent daughter as well.
I completely misread that, because she arrives with him as well, doesn't she? The wife and the...
I think they're still married. I think that's his marriage.
There's another friend. Well, there's the friend who was on the bike, who's a sort of
who's the postman, who's not
drunk
really,
local guy.
He's not really he's not really like a close friend. He just happens to sort of...
But he gives him this very generous present early on.
I think he's just delivering it.
Is he?
He's the postman.
Yeah, but he seems to know an awful lot about it.
Yes, but his thing is like, I'm not just a postman. I'm a philosophical religious person.
I wonder. Yeah.
I think I thought that was what's going on. There's some funny things as well, like the women are all dressed up like they're in Fanny and Alexander. They all seem to be taking their fashion cues from like 1900. But the men aren't. The men are sort of in business smart casual 80s wear.
Yes, quite rumpled.
They also have lots of servants. The household setup is like Fanny and Alexander as well. They've got like 3 maids.
And there's the house, which is sort of black wooden house, rather attractively located in this what seems like the middle of absolutely nowhere by the water.
No road in this one. It's not like Solaris.
No road connecting it. But it turns out you can just drive the car across, because everything's this sort of short grass. You can just drive.
Yeah, things arrive and out of nowhere.
The car eventually arrives, but for no good reason. And but essentially, they're all cut together for dinner. And then the end of the world happens, like, very unfortunately. It's clear that the end of the world has happened. It hasn't there haven't been all that many consequences for them in their part of the world yet, but it's
happening. The Cold War's about to go hot. It's on the news. Like, we're going to have a nuclear Armageddon.
And there's lots of noise and things as well, and like a bit of...
Jet fighters fly overhead.
Yeah.
Well, you hear the sound of them.
In some mysterious way, it becomes clear that one of his maids, who's gone off duty for the night, is actually a witch, and...
No, she's a pure Christian.
She's a pure Christian. Oh, right, yeah. or some. But she's like magic, isn't she?
She is, but I don't think she casts spells. I don't think she's magical in that way.
Because she's able to tell him essentially this deal which he can make to undo the end of the world and to have everything.
This is how I see it. While you're looking that up, the end of the world happens. The party kind of breaks down. The wife becomes hysterical and is sedated by the doctor. The daughter doesn't want to be sedated. The party becomes kind of bleak. It goes on a bit. He goes upstairs. He's like fearful. He prays and he says to God, don't let this happen. I will give up everything. I will sacrifice everything. Like, he falls asleep. He wakes up. He sort of sneaks around the house, comes across, I think, the postman, who tells him, you must go to her. You must, Maria. You must go to her. Have my bicycle. Don't you see? There is still time. You still have time. You must do this to save everyone. There is still a chance. You must do this. He's a bit suspicious. Doesn't understand what's going on.
They have this weird love scene. Well, all I can tell you is that the Wikipedia plot synopsis says that she is a witch.
How do we know that?
Otto says that she's a witch in the best possible sense.
Okay. But her house is full of Christian things. He just knocks on the doors and says, hello.
So you may be a saint.
Yeah, I thought she was like a saint. I thought she was like a saintly woman. And they have a stilted conversation. He plays her organ. He then says, will you love me? Will you love me? And she's like, what are you talking about? I can come back to the house if you're like, oh, what have they done to you? And then he like pulls out a gun and like threatens to shoot himself.
Classic. Girls love it.
And then they sort of tenderly make love and levitate, slowly rotating.
Inevitably, yeah.
Which...
It saves the world.
And it wakes up the next day and none of it, and all the apocalypse was like a dream.
But unfortunately, the bargain has to be paid.
And he's very worried. He's like, oh my God, do I have to kill my son?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to kill his son.
No. But he does have to burn the house down.
Yeah, and it's great. He kind of like, listens to some of his funny Japanese music, puts on the silk kimono, which seems to be, at the moment, the de rigueur, the go-to outfit for going out and doing insane things in a midlife crisis. It's got a little, like, yin and yang on the back, like, leaves a little note saying, why don't you all go off for a walk? Kind of sneaks around, a middle-aged man, like, sneaking around his family, like, oh, see me. And then he kind of, like, dodders around, makes a big pile of chairs, sets the house on fire, and then we watch it burn, and the people come back and are like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? And the end is like, ha 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 ha, I'm burning the house down. And that goes on for a while, and the house burns a lot. Although it does appear it's rather an insurance sort of fire. It like goes up whoosh, and it's all made of little tiny bits of sticks, and
yeah, it goes up pretty fast.
And it's kind of fun.
But it really is an enormous thing on fire. It looks good. It all falls down
right in the last like second of the film.
Well, I think
like,
they probably had to cut then because it looked weird after that. Obviously, it's a big thing to make a whole house entirely, because it's all shot inside this house. This house was the set for the film, and you really are looking at them burning the entire production as the last scene. And when they were doing it the first time, the camera jammed and it was complete write-off.
Second time they did it with 2 cameras.
But they did have to rebuild like as much of the house as they could in order to burn it down
again. Which I think partly
again.
accounts for how kind of flimsy it seems.
No, it looks great.
Oh, I mean, it burns very burny, like the fire, like the barn fire.
Yeah, it burns very burny, and yeah, it's clearly a very big wooden thing on fire. And then there's just a lot of sort of running. He is kind of consoled by them, or like questioned by them, and then sort of starts running.
Maria comes in on her bicycle. He tries to approach her.
He's running away.
You don't really hear much sound. A little dinky ambulance comes along.
Yeah, they try
he's like going to go in the ambulance. Then he's not going to go in the ambulance.
He's
running
away.
Like bring him back to the ambulance. And then he's running backwards and forwards, and you can see the house burning. And then
the camera is like moving backwards and forwards with the action. You know, gently backwards and forwards.
And it's funny. It's like people. It's funny. This film is his, at one level, his funniest, although more in hindsight than when you're actually watching it, because the middle bit is, I found the middle of this one rubbish. I found all the like sitting around, like the people sitting around the television, the like hysterical wife.
Yeah, so I had a question about all this because it seemed to me that
I mean, rubbish might be a bit strong, but the middle of the film really felt weaker than both ends.
It drags a bit, yeah. There is an awful lot of, yeah, as you say, like, well, this bit I had a sort of question about the connection to surreal, like the surreal and surrealism. You know, there's a lot of he'll turn up and everyone is sitting outside in their evening dress around the table with the tablecloth on, but it's mysteriously been moved outside the house and they're all kind of sitting out front in the mud, staring in different directions. And
yeah, all dressed up like they're in 1900 with some mates, but it's like the 1980s in some other things. There's some of that that's on purpose, and there's some things which is that there's like different sort of stories mashing together. There's a story which is about a man, his life is kind of a bit crummy and in crisis, and he doesn't like his bourgeois existence and his unhappy marriage, and he like kind of makes this massive swerve of like going off, having sex with a witch and burning his unsatisfactory bourgeois existence to pieces, you know, with his boring friends there, tedious intellectual conversation, his dissatisfied wife, his grumpy adolescent daughter, who is interested in his friend, that's all being swept aside. And there's another film which is like a man making a bargain with God to stop the apocalypse, to stop a nuclear war. And it feels like they don't kind of really resolve. It doesn't feel like that's the plot. Like those plots haven't really been synthesized together. Like some of the bits just don't really make sense in the other one.
yeah, you kind of slip from one to the other.
The one about the man is way better. The one about the like nuclear war thing seems a bit weak.
I think I quite like the way that it goes into the nuclear war, like bargain with God one, and then he wakes up back in the other plot again, but he still has to burn down his house. And then I think that's sort of part of what makes it funny as well, is that he's escaped from a different story into this one.
But it doesn't feel resolved. It doesn't feel that's like a conscious, intelligent decision. It feels like that's something that's happening.
I think there is something, I wanted to return to this surreal thing. I think that Tarkovsky thinks that the surreal and the memorable are very closely connected and often aligned. I don't think that he's interested in surrealism in the sort of register that we would normally associate it with. I mean, I know you said that there is a bit of satire, and I guess there is a bit, but I don't think he's...
I think that sort of first plot about the man, his bourgeois life, setting it all afire, that's quite strong and funny satire. He literally like puts on a kimono, listens to some funny music, piles up the chairs, sets his house on fire while his wife's out. Like, and it's palpably, and he's a palpably sort of ridiculous figure while he's doing it. I thought the kimono was a great detail. It makes him look...
He's a warrior.
It's like he's both sort of taking on this Japanese stuff, but it also just makes him look really silly. Like... It seems both more like he's harkening on to some Japanese priest stuff, but also like more like a kind of midlife crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. In the like God part of the story, it is laid on quite thick, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the film has his son quoting the book of John. No, it has like the Gospel of John.
Oh yes.
At the end.
Yes. What he says. It's the only thing the child said. Like the end of the film, the very end is the little boy is lying at the base of his Japanese tree, dead Japanese tree,
and it's miraculously come into flower.
Really? I thought it was still just a dead tree.
No, there's blossom on it. I thought it had.
Well, you might be right. He says, like, you know, in the beginning was the word or something like that. But why is that? And then it pans up, and the pan up is just like Ivan's childhood, the beginning, when Ivan is at the bottom of the tree, and it slowly pans up this tree, and he's like in his dream paradise world, which is quite cute because it's like that must be conscious that he's like doing the beginning and the end. Like it seemed
because he knew he was dying when he made this film as well.
Like the last one felt quite Italian with all that sort of like chorus stuff and all these funny people standing around and beautiful Italian scenes, beautiful Italian light. This one has got Scandinavian-iness people with their kind of like sort of Ingmar Bergman-y a bit, and there's beautiful like long drawn out twilights, northern, like low light. It made me see new things in the other films, and the beginning and the end are fun, and I like bits of it. I thought this was a weaker film. I thought that the nostalgia of the film before it actually hangs together as a piece and kind of works, whereas I felt that there was a lot of internal tension in the writing of this one. I felt like he was dissatisfied with it and was kind of like throwing things. It felt to me like, the writing was, he was dissatisfied with it and was kind of adding things to try and twist the story out of its natural path a bit. Or like was wanting to say something that one story wasn't saying or something like that. I've got no evidence for that.
Yeah, I think they're pretty similar. This one's got, they're both very atmospheric. They've both got some pretty strange interiors. Strange landscapes. Not much fog in this one.
No, it's more like the twilight. A magical twilight, magical night time. More claustrophobic as well. These little internal scenes that are very theatrical. And like,
he has this vision of the end of the world, which is sort of a return to the city scene in Nostalgia, isn't it? All these people running around.
Yeah, they're running around and there's lots of like rubbish and paper and white everywhere. People are sort of panicked. There's some scenes that stick out as when I think also I saw this one last and I'd watched a whole load of Tarkovsky films, and the middle bit where like they're all, these gloomy scenes of like people sitting at funny angles, they're being like arranged theatrically, talking portentously or like having emotional fits or whatever. It all felt very played out and like undergunned, those bits. He didn't seem to take them seriously.
He has two things he wants the women to do. One is like have an emotional fit. The other one is show their breasts.
Yes.
In this one, it's two different women do them. In the previous one, same woman does both of them.
He likes it when they writhe around in an emotional fit, preferably writhing on the floor at some point. He also likes it when they say that they go through it all and they love the suffering really because he's brought such impassioned something or other into them. He likes that. He also likes them to like him to like say something to them and them to like be emotional and incomprehensible and beautiful. They've got to be beautiful all the time as well. They're all beautiful. Because it's so slow, any weakness or any strength you really see because it's really being shown to you and you've got time to think about it and feel it. Again, anything that might be a throwaway in a shorter, quicker film, you really see, you really experience. The eye lingers on everything. And you spend a lot of time looking at people and their emotions when they're not talking or when they are talking slowly. The play bit of this film, the bit that's claustrophobic and in the drawing room and is this dinner party turning into turmoil and the characters revealing their flaws, which again, has he watched a bit of Ibsen or something? Like for me, I found it a bit insufferable. It's still beautiful. It's difficult. The things I dislike about the films are quite easy to articulate, and the things that I think are amazing are kind of harder to transmit over wordless, because they are all of the films are major works. They're major artworks, and some of them more resolved than others, but they're all pretty. It's all pretty high grade stuff.
He seems to have discovered something in the landscape. I think it's Gotland, which is a Swedish island.
Gotland, yeah, it's Visby and all that.
But there's something about, there are like very long tracks of following him going somewhere on his bicycle or this kind of thing. And there's something about that like grass like a carpet, and this kind of there's basically just one type of plant there's two types of plants in the landscape. There's grass and there's one type of tree, which there are like four of at different distances. The landscape is almost like a kind of rather minimalist sort of mise en scène. You've got the absolute minimum that you need to create: foreground, middle, background. There's a wiggly line, which is the sea, and that's it. And then one like minimalist path drawn through the middle of it. Everything looks like a Japanese painting, this kind of absolutely minimal inscription of elements. And there's something very satisfying about it.
Amazing light too, bouncing off the sea, really coastal combined by that very low light.
Lovely sunlight at 11 o'clock at night.
Grew up in a country where you get darkness. I haven't seen it for years, you know. It just isn't. Our life doesn't have that. And then couldn't pick up the awards for this one because he was in hospital, lung cancer. There's a lot of smoking in the films. Lot of smoking.
Well, I mean, there's a sort of conspiracy theory that they were all poisoned with some kind of terrible chemical on the set of Stalker. And in fact, all the people involved, most of the main characters didn't live very long, but they all seem to have died of lung cancer, and there's a much more proximate explanation for why that might have been.
I know our friends in Russia love the esoteric poison. It seems to be very de rigueur again at the moment. But it seems a bit strange giving people a poison that's going to cause them to die of lung cancer 10 years later. That seems like a bit of an eccentric thing to do. No, I mean, and also I think he smoked like a chimney. Kids. It's very bad for you, and it can be quite addicting.
So there's a Chris Marker documentary shot in the last sort of months of his life.
He seems to have been waiting for, he's preparing for his deathbed in, numerous times through these films. He's like, it's really one of the moments. How did it come out?
Quite jolly, yeah, in bed. I think he had to do some of the final editing on this film in bed. They brought all the editing equipment in. Yeah, and it was a bit difficult because they wouldn't... I think his wife was allowed to join him fairly early on, but his children weren't, or they sort of were latterly once it was clear how ill he was.
And he wasn't old at all. He died before his father, I think. How old was he? He was in his late 50s sort of thing? Like plausibly could still be alive now. Be pretty old now. He'd be pretty old now. Certainly could have done a load more films. Although I was saying earlier,
the late career of Terrence Malick doesn't exactly fill you with with a sort of belief in what the late films of Andrei Tarkovsky would have been like.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people carry on and do a lot.
A lot of real dogs. Some people discover late style, but he's already so in such a weird place stylistically.
Yeah, but and also he's really going. I mean, he might have got himself out of it, but he's really going down a rabbit hole of I'm just going to go deeper and deeper into my own I'm going to impersonate myself stronger and stronger and just go more and more into this thing. All strong, but he might have had some different ideas. Why do you think they're all really sad?
All the films?
Yeah. Because they definitely, they always feel mournful. Very mournful. And in his entire opus, apart from the TV films at the beginning, apart from the studio work, maybe Ivan's Childhood isn't that mournful, but it's still pretty mournful. It's still pretty. It's definitely a downer on the upper downer scale.
It's not a barrel of laughs. I guess that's his particular sort of truth, isn't it? I mean, he does say in the book at one point, he says, "From the very moment when Eve ate the apple from the tree of knowledge, mankind was doomed to strive endlessly after the truth. Again and again, man correlates himself with the world, racked with the longing to acquire and become one with the ideal which lies outside him." And I think that he definitely sort of understands what he's trying to do as to capture a particular truth, which I'm not sure exactly how he knows that that's what it is. I think he kind of knows it because it's the sort of deepest, profoundest thing that he feels connecting with him. And it happens to be sort of melancholic, I guess, in the way that those sorts of ultimate sort of truths and understandings kind of are, because they are outside of you and of life and of all the kind of things which might give you a thrill,
But they can be joyful. They're the big feeling can be joyful. It can be sort of evanescent rather than.
Oh yeah, but that's still
his ocean of oceanicness is black and inky, and you look down into it, and you see the reflections, and you see the enormous depth.
Thanks for bearing with us if you've listened all the way till the end.
Yeah, it was a joyous slog, and we'll be back to architecture soon. One of the greats.
Join us for that. If you want even more content, you can subscribe to our Patreon.
Was that not enough? If you just thought that we lacking amount,
and that is at patreon.com/about_buildings.
have an Instagram which has pictures of the things we're describing, if the descriptions were insufficiently adequate, which they generally are.
We're at about_buildings.
You can email us. Do you have any thoughts about these films? Have I made any egregious factual errors?
Do you want to tell us about them? It's aboutbuildingsandcities@gmail.com.
Good night.